So we have this new class test matrix in this new project that I named assignment 2 question 2, and we are going to solve this problem now. I'm not going to do anything in this test matrix first because I need to have the class defined, the matrix class defined. So I'm going to go ahead and define that class first. So for me to do that, I'm going to right click and create a new Java class, and that I've named matrix. It's very important when we give you names, you have to respect the naming of the variables, the methods that we give you. You have to respect them. So the spelling is very important at that time. So we have that matrix representing a matrix of real values with the following instance variables and methods. So we have a variable matrix holding a 2D array of values. We know that those values should be real, which means that the data type of all the values inside of this matrix should be double, because real values, these are not integer values. So int is not the good answer. The answer is double. It has to be double, and it has to be, let me maybe make it private, double 2-dimensional array matrix. And I'm not going to rest because it didn't specify the size, and the size might be specified by some different constructors, and I'm going to be doing that later on. I'm just specifying that this will hold a 2-dimensional array. Okay, we would like, so this is done, yeah. Because we said real values. Be double because we said that this is going to be representing a matrix of real values. So that's the alaikum salam. Sorry? Why private? Well, there's no requirement here to say, let's say private, but all the time, generally, when we declare instance variables, we are going to make them private. And then if we need the user to give him access to it, we are going to be adding these accessors and mutators as needed, or the getters and setters if we need them to access that. So by default, generally, this is what we do. But in this, is it a requirement? Well, since I did not maybe specify it, you could have made it public as well. But the correct way, the best way to do it is to make it private, because we're allowing the user to get some information by using this get value and set value to be able to set something inside of it. Yes. So let's create first now this second task, and where we have to create a constructor that constructs a matrix from a 2-dimensional array given as input. Okay, what this means, we would like to have a constructor, and a constructor is a method that has the same name as the class. And in that in that constructor, it is taking a 2-dimensional array as an input, which means as an argument we need to have an array of 2-dimensional, and I'm going to name it, like, for example, input. And then if I have this, then all I have to do is check this input, and this is going to be my matrix. So the answer of the second task is to create a constructor that constructs a matrix from a 2-dimensional array given as an input. So I'm assuming that you're giving me a 2-dimensional array. I'm going to save that 2-dimensional array as my matrix. Is it okay? So this is done. The third part, a constructor that constructs an m by n matrix of zeros, where m and n are given as parameters. So we would like to have now another, let me just copy this, another constructor that takes two numbers n and m, and then I am going to create first a new matrix with n and m, and then I'm going to, as you said, in for loop, actually in double for loop, nested for loop, I'm going to put some initial values and put them as zeros. So this part I'm just setting the size that I haven't set here in this case. So I'm setting it here with the values coming from the arguments, and then once I have those, I'm going to put all zeros in my matrix. So this is what it says: a constructor that constructs an m by n. Okay, it says m by n, so m should be for the rows. Let's just rename this. I'm going to rename it as an m first, because I just would like to rename this other one to be n, and this one back to m. So an m by n. We always start with the rows and then columns, so that's why I'm doing it this way. Yes?
How can you change all the variables?
What do you mean change all the variables? Which variables?
I mean, you change by just...
Oh, okay, how this is like the control R. If you'd like to change any name, you press control R on the variable, and then all of the same are going to be changed. And then this is how you do it. You press on, you click on, this is on NetBeans actually, yeah. You with control R. Now with this control R, you can see it probably, the control R somewhere. Maybe let me put it here, so you can see that if you press control R, you can see it actually there. It was showing up, but maybe not clearly. So this is the third task, which is the constructor. Now we have to have, like this number 4, a method getValue to get the value of the element at a given position I and j. So I need this getValue that returns a value. So public, help me here. GetValue. Well, I need first to have something, a return data type. Oh yes, that should be double. Is it a double value or a double array? What am I returning? A value or an array? Well, it's a value of an element of the array. So it's just a value. It's just one double. It's not an array of doubles. So this getValue will just return one element, the value of the element at a given position I and j. So which means I have only one value to return. Then this should be double. And I'm going having this getValue, and I cannot work. This getValue cannot work unless we have this I and j. And they all should be int, because whatever we put here is only int. And then I need to return this. This will give me the value at the position I and j. Given I and j, I return the value. This is what I need to do. That's it. And since this is private, it makes more sense to have that, so I can get the value of each one of them, and even one of those values, because you just give me the I and j, the row and column, and that's it. The task number 5, set value to set the value of the element given at position I and j using a given value x. So now it's going to be public double. Are we returning something? A method setValue that sets the value of the element. Setting a value does not require to return anything. So this is going to be void. And as it set value, okay, in set value I need to, how many arguments I need to be given this set value? One for I, one for j, and the other one for the value which they named x. So I need int I, int j, and int x. No, because it should be double, because I have double. as the value. Now all I need to do is, I'm not returning anything because we said this is void, so I'm not returning. A for loop, what do we need to be repeating? Putting this value in all places, in all the array? No. Actually, we have the position, we have the value, we just need to save it inside of the matrix. So yes, and we said matrix I and J. It is, I don't know, the computer today is really lagging. I have no idea why. Okay, that's going to be making things funny. So we said I and J is going to be equal to X. So this is how I'm setting a value inside of the matrix. You give me a value and then you give me the position and then I'm going to save it. And to return the value, you give me just the position of I and J and I'm going to return the value of that element at that position. So this is the get value and set value that I had to come up with. Yes?
In the main method, if we want to get like all the values of the array,
yes,
we should put get value in a loop.
Yes, you should use that get value in a loop. Yes. Okay, so we have this get value, set value, and now we're going to be continuing, and we finish this one. Let's work on this method transpose. I saw something, that's why that I didn't like, that's why. So now this method transpose that returns the transpose of the current matrix. What is transpose? Method transpose? The columns becomes the rows and the rows becomes the columns. Okay, yeah. So this is what we need to be doing. So we would like to have this public. What is the return data type?
Double array.
Two-dimensional array. I'm returning the double two-dimensional double array. Transpose. Do I need to give something as an input? No, I'm not getting any input because I'm inputting the current matrix. What is the current matrix? Well, this one that I have. I need to return it, so I don't need to have anything there. Well, first of all, I need to do something before starting the loop. The first thing that I need to be doing is set value. Not needed, no. Before it, I need to return a new matrix, right? So this new matrix should be declared. I need to declare my new matrix that I would like to return. So I need to declare it first. So this new matrix that I'm going to be declaring is, let's name it, I don't know, matrix transpose, something like that. Transpose, for example, equal new double. Do I know the size of? No? Well, I might know. 2 by 2, no, it's not always. It depends on. It depends on. Not the set value. It depends on the matrix itself. What is the content of that matrix? I mean, I need to then check, get the number of columns or rows here. Number of rows for this matrix should be the number of columns of. So this is the transpose, okay? This is the transpose matrix, and the size of this is going to be. Well, what is J? We don't have J here, but if I'd like to, okay, if I tell you, okay, let me do something. Let me declare the size of this new transposed matrix. What I want to do is that I would like to declare two variables, number of rows and number of columns, and these two variables are going to be the number of rows of the matrix, for example. So the number of rows of matrix, how can I get it?
I.
Sorry?
What's the I?
No.
Get value.
I just would like to have the number of rows of the matrix.
Matrix I.
No. Matrix I is going to give me the an array of, the number of columns of matrix I. An array of which is going to be the columns of the first. On the I if I use 0, but I don't have I. Matrix, why 0? Because the number of the rows of the matrix is dot length of the matrix. These are for the matrix itself. And I'm going to probably now you get mixed up, because now I'm not talking about the number of rows of this matrix transpose. I'm talking about how many rows does this matrix has, and I can get that by using this matrix.length, right? I can get the number of columns by using matrix 0, for example, dot length. Okay? So now in this new transpose, the number of columns are going to be the rows in this one, and the number of rows are going to be the columns there. I added this one just because I didn't want to scare you first, but you see this number of rows, it's matrix.length. So I can just take this and put it here. And I'm going to be doing the same thing for this one. The number of columns is this value, so I'm going to take this and put it there. So in order for me to explain this statement that I'm doing, I just want you to realize that this is the number of columns of the matrix, and this is the number of rows of the matrix. And this number of rows is becoming in a number of columns for this new matrix transpose, and the number of columns of the matrix is the number of rows of matrix transpose. So this is, I know the size of the matrix, I should know the size of the matrix, the transpose of that matrix. So that's why, since I know it, I'm going just to declare it with the right size. I just need to not get confused and just be able to extract the number of rows and number of columns correctly and put them in the right place. So this is the number of columns of matrix, and this is now the number of columns, the number of rows, of matrix transpose. And this is the number of rows in matrix. They are now the number of columns of matrix transpose. Now that I have done that, it is still complaining that I have a mistake because I need to have the return. Very good. And I'm returning this matrix transpose. Of course, I'm not done yet. I have to prepare this. There are no values inside of it. So I'm going to put those values. And now I'm going to go back to your proposal to have a 2 to 4. So, but for what? Now, what is the I is going to be matrix transpose dot length. So okay. So this is now the matrix transpose dot length. Okay, I'm going to follow you on that, and then for j to be. Okay, so I get the number of columns of the matrix transpose. Okay. And then what are we going to be doing? Matrix transpose of I and j. Matrix transpose of j and I. So this is what you're proposing. Do you agree with him?
No.
No? Why?
It should be equal to matrix
Alaikum salam. It should be equal to matrix j and I. Do you agree with this? I think this is what you wanted. I mean, I'm guessing, because if you do something like this, If you do something like this, you're just taking the values from the same matrix, and then you move in from the same matrix transpose, which at this stage has only zeros inside of it, because you did not put any values inside of that one. So you just put in zeros and moving zeros around, but the result is all of them are going to be zeros. But now what I need to be doing is taking some information from the matrix instead of matrix transpose. So what we want to do is not matrix transpose as we said, but matrix J and I, and that's it. Now this is how we are going to be transposing our matrix and then return the result. Okay, now we need to keep going, and we would like to have this plus. So public, do I need to return something? Yes. And what am I returning? So I need to matrix transpose? No, I'm looking at number 7 now. With this plus, I need to return the result of adding the current matrix with the matrix given as a parameter. The result of matrix plus a matrix is a matrix. So I need to return a matrix of a two-dimensional array. So double plus, and do I need something in between parentheses? Yes, an array, a double, which is, I don't know, let's name it M2, and I need to declare the result of that, and the result is going to be new double. Sorry? You get the size of the matrix.length and matrix 0 dot length. Okay. Now what I need to be doing, actually I'm assuming that matrix and matrix M2 are having the same exact same size, because if they don't have same size, this is going to be quite difficult to perform anything. But maybe you could just, maybe you could ask, put a if and then test something. If they're not a different size, you just return a matrix of zeros, for example, or something like that. But yeah, this could have been actually the better way to do it. For example, I can just do something like this. I can have if this M2 dot length is different, is not equal to matrix dot length. So if the number of rows are not the same, or if the number of columns are not the same, 0 dot length, then I'm going to return. I'm not going to be returning 0. I'm going to return a new matrix double of the size of a new empty matrix, actually. Of the same size. I think it's the first time when you see this new thing, right? Because this new matrix is generally, this is what we do when we save this, whatever we have some new, we save it into the new variable that we declared, or like what we did in the constructors, like this one over here, you see, where I have like I'm preparing a new array, and then with the dimensions that I specified, and then I'm returning them. This is what I'm doing here. Yes, what is your question? There is a mistake in transpose. Okay, just give me a minute or half an hour, depending on the whatever the computers. So in the transpose, you said. Sorry?
To switch the I and J around. The matrix transpose JI equals matrix IJ.
You mean matrix transpose? It should be JI here and here.
IJ.
Well, we tried it with this way, and it worked as well. If you switch it, I think it is going to work as well, because now what you'll be doing then, you're going to be filling row column-wise. And what we did, I mean, we filled row-wise in the matrix transpose. If you switch it back, actually what you're going to be filling column-wise, which is okay. This is another way to do it. But this doesn't mean that this is wrong. What our friend here is saying is that if we do this, this is what he is suggesting. No, actually, it's okay. The loop is going to be fine. The only thing that we are changing is where we're checking the values from. Am I going row-wise or column-wise? This is the only difference. And you're right, we need to change also the here. Yeah. Now I think this is okay, inshallah. We will test it later on, we will check it. But I think this should be okay. So anyways, just to show you something new, you can do something like this to check. This is not required, by the way, because I did not specify that. I was assuming that the array should be of the same size. So just checking if the arrays are of the same size. Okay, so now if assuming that they are of the same size, I'm going to perform the addition of those two by just doing the following. So actually I'm going to copy this, put it there, and then another 4 for j, which is matrix 0 dot length. I'm also assuming that I'm not using some ragged arrays. You remember about ragged arrays that do not have the same size on all of in the same columns, I mean on all of their rows. So I'm assuming that they're not ragged. So what I need to be doing is that result I j is equal to, well, m, well I have m2 in my case, m2 I j plus matrix I j. And then the last thing that I'm going to be doing is return the result.
If you want to return the result, will it return the array or the location?
It will return the whole array. I mean, actually, what you say is true. It is going to return the pointer to that array. I mean, the one that points to the array. But because whenever we work with this, when we return something like the pointer, then I can be accessing that and changing the value. So it's like returning the whole array. Okay, just to make things better, I don't want to have two returns, so sometimes I might not see that there's a return, and this is not a good practice to have a lot of returns in your methods. So you can get confused on which return is what and when this method got the return from. So what I'm going to be doing is the following. I'm going to be taking this and I'm going to declare it at the beginning. Notice that what I was returning is the same thing here, right? And so instead of returning this, I'm going to say if they are equal in the same equal, and they are equal also in the number of rows and the number of columns, I am going to be doing this. So if they have the same number of rows, same number of columns, I'm going to be doing the addition. If not, I'm going to return results, which is what? Just an empty array. So now I'm just holding the two cases in just one one return, which is making it simpler for me to understand what am I returning. I'm returning the content of this result, and this result can have like either an empty content with a lot of zeros, or if this condition is met, it is going to be giving me the result of this calculation over here. So it's a better way. Yes.
Is it okay if you made the condition less than the size of the original array?
Well, if it's less, I'm not looking at the conditions anyway. This is not part of what I was assessing, but it's not okay because well, it depends on then how you manage it, you know.
I admit it, so as long as it's
Well, in the for loop, what was your I mean boundaries? What were your boundaries?
the same.
No,
I mean, does that mean that
but what are you checking? Which one is less? Should be less.
would only add the smaller array to the same and leave the rest of the
Which one should be smaller? Is acceptable for it to be smaller for you?
as long as it's
This one or that one? Which one is small? What is your condition? M2 less than or matrix less than? This is my question. What do you want to do? Is this one less than this one or the other one?
you make M2 less than equal to
If the M2 is less than equal to matrix, okay? So you're asking if it's one is smaller than matrix, then what are you putting here? Matrix again?
yeah, matrix.
No, it will not work. Because if it's smaller, then you might not be able to get all the i's and j's on that. Maybe you have to stop at if you use this condition, you have to use this M2 now here. Because your M2 is smaller than the matrix. And if you try to find some values in M2 that does not exist, you're going to have this array out of bound exception.
It'll just stop. There will be nothing to add.
Sorry?
Won't it just stop?
It will not stop. It just raise an exception. It's not like a nice stop. It is going to have like a hard stop. Because if you do it this way, your matrix number 2, I don't know how to how to explain, but I'm not going to show. Let me show it to you maybe here. Let's paint. So let's take a very simple example when you have like two small arrays, but this is completely out of the topic, but let's just do something for you to understand my point. So imagine this is your M2, okay, which is smaller than this matrix. And in this matrix I'm using, I don't know, to make it clear. This is my matrix M. So now if you put your double for loop, your I is going to go from 0 to 2. And your J is going to go from 0 to 3. While here, this M2IJ is going to one day raise an exception when I is going to be out of the boundaries of this M2. This is what I meant. I think you got my point?
Created a
Anyways, but you...
array.
Sorry? Well,
A resultant array.
I'm not talking about the result, because I was talking about the fact that in your for loops, you should not be using matrix. That's what I asked you. If you put this one less than that one, then this M2 should be in here.
I made it less than the result.
Well, we're going to check it. I'm not getting exactly what you did, but you got my point, right? You have to be careful to not having this array out of bound exception. This is what I meant. So just to be careful about that. But even this was not. I didn't ask for that. I just want you to just do this. So if this is part of your code, that's fine. I'm not going to assume that they have different sizes. So I think this plus is done. Let's have a look at this method times. Please, if you have any other questions, raise them. It's a good time for raising questions. If you have any questions, just please don't wait until the end. a method times that returns the result of multiplying the current matrix by a given scalar value x. So public void, it says returns. It cannot be void then. So it should return what? It returns the result of multiplying the current matrix by a given value x. What is the return? What should I be returning? A value or a matrix? A value?
No, another matrix.
Another matrix. So it should be double. So I said times. And do I need something to be using that? Yes, I have to use a number. Double is the more flexible one to give me any numbers x. And then what I need to be doing, I need to create first, before the for loop, I need to create another one, another copy of that, and I will return the result. I'm not going to be checking if this is the same size or anything. There's no need for that, because I'm just multiplying by a number. I'm not multiplying two matrices. Okay, so I need a double for. Let me just maybe copy this. It would be faster. And just the result should be this multiplied by x. And that's it. I'm returning that. That's it. I have another times, which is called method overloading, because I have two methods with the same name with a different signature, and this one is going to return the result of multiplying the current matrix by another matrix given as a parameter. So it's going to be similar to this one, except that instead of only having a number, now I'm having
Similar to the plus.
actually, yes, it's similar to the plus. So I should probably copy it from the plus, because it's going to be much easier for me to. Okay, so your point was to, instead of using this matrix.length, since we're working with results, let's keep working with the results. Just, yeah. It's not, actually it doesn't change anything, but just not to get confused, to avoid confusion, and then maybe get lost in the thing. So yeah. But anyways, in this scenario, but yeah, you're right. Just to avoid confusion, let's keep it like that. It doesn't make a difference in terms of the computing, because the values are actually the same. But let's do something like this. So now I have times. The only thing I need to change is this multiply, and that's it. So I'll just name it times. I'm using now this M2, this and this matrix 2, and instead of adding the first one with the second one, I'm just multiplying the first one by the second one. Okay, and this is the number 9. We're almost there. Let's define an appropriate toString for this one. So how to do that? Public string toString. It has to be string, and then I need to return something. So what should I be returning? I should display the content of the matrix, right? So how can I display the content of the matrix? Well, let me show you. I'm going to be, let's name this result, and I'm going to return this result at the end. And now it's empty. The first time it's going to be empty. What I'm going to be doing is that let's have this double for. This time not for the result, but for the matrix. And actually, I need just to do something. Instead of doing this system.out.println, I'm going to add this. Display this with a space. You add the number and add the space. Add the number, add the space, and I'm adding this instead of just right away putting it on the screen, because I would like to return it as a string. I am just adding this to my result, which is my result text. However, just if I would like to have things displayed properly, you remember every time we need to go back to the line, and whenever we finish with the column, we need to go back to the line. So what I'm going to be doing is just something like this, result. And how can I go back to the line? Remember this? \n to go back to the line. So now I'm putting the values, separate them by a space, and then go back to the line. So I'm going to be using this and checking it. I'm going to be testing this later, inshallah. But this is something interesting that we could use as an example. You could use another example. It depends. Just maybe any different way that will allow me to see what is inside of that matrix would have been fine. But it has to return a string. This is the thing. It has to return a string. Okay, what about the equals? How do I know that, equals normally, it returns a boolean, alaykum salam. It returns a boolean that is either true or false. And I'm comparing generally another matrix of the same class, so let's say the other one. And then I need to return either true or false. But how can I know if two matrices are the same?
They have to be same size and same value in each.
Okay, so they have to have the same size and the same values. Okay, so I need to be doing this. Okay, let's try to do something. And I'm going to be declaring my returned I like to be doing something like this. A returned value, something similar like this result. Let's return value. I'm going to assume, I don't know which one, maybe I'm going to change it later on. I'm going to assume that this is true, they're equal, and I'm going to check if they're not equal. I'm going to put this as false, or maybe just return it right away. And return. So this is just a variable that I'm trying to use. I'm going to do something to test that. If after my tests it is still true, then it is going to be fine. So let me show you something. The first thing I'd like to check if they are the same size. So how can I do that? By checking that they are the same size. Okay. If matrix dot length is equal to other dot can I do this? Dot length. Okay, and just okay. I just would like to make sure that it was there, and I need to do the same now. If this is equal, I mean, if one of them is different, that would be better to check if they are different. If one of them is different, this is going to be false, right? I mean, I need to add this OR. This is the number of columns. So if the number of rows is different or the number of columns is different, then this should be false. This is one way. Yes? This one? Yeah, this should be different. So if they are different, you're right, thank you very much. So if I had to make all of them different. If they are different in the number of rows or the number of columns, then return false. If they're not different, then in the number of columns and rows, then I need to be checking something else. Then I need to go and check dot length, another 4 j matrix 0 dot length. And now what I need to be doing is compare if matrix I and j is different from other dot. Yes, I just would like to use something else just for fun. What about using this? Remember this get value? It returns the value at position I and j. So it's the same thing. If the other get me the value, then if they're different, then this should be, I should be returning false. Right? I don't need to keep going and keep testing. If maybe just the first value is wrong, this is false, and break. Remember what break does? Stop the loops. So I'm going to get out of the loop. That's a good point. Am I going to get out only from j, the 4j, or am I going to get out from both of them? It's going to get out from this one. Yeah.
So it should be in the for I. Or I.
Sorry?
The break should be in the for I.
Well, I can, yeah, but I cannot just put it like here, for example, because it's just going to stop every time. But because I cannot put it somewhere else. But I need to. Yeah, what you're right. If you keep it doing this way, that's fine. It's going to work. But if you'd like to make the break work, as you said, I have to do something in here in this for I loop. And the thing that I can do is this. What about this one? So in my question, I'm not only checking that my I is less than the matrix.length, I'm only checking that if the return value is still true. Because if I put true inside of it, if this is false, I get out of here. So this is still true. I did not change the return value. And then this is true, and I'm checking, I'm doing whatever I need to be doing. But if one day this becomes false, and then I get out, even if the I has not reached the end of the rows. This is something which is optional. I was not expecting you to do this. I mean, if you just did this without the break, that would have been okay as well. But this is the best way to do it, because if you have a big matrix, you don't have, if the first value is different from the first value of the other one, you don't have to keep going and see all the 1000 values, and you know already that this is false. I mean, this is not going to be true. So that's one way to do it. You break here, and just you put as a condition that if this is still true, you keep going. If this is false, you get out. And then we return the return value. So this is the class matrix. Let's try this out, and in our class test matrix. So let's try that with we have like this matrix. M is equal to new matrix. Okay, and now you see it offers me two options, because I have two constructors. One that you give it a two-dimensional array, and the other one that you give it only the size. So let's try with the first one, where I'm going to be giving it like a new array. So I don't have this one, so let me just create it first, for example. So I'm going to have this double. Let's name it input equal new, or maybe just put some values right away. 1, 2, 3. Let's try with that one. 4, 5, 6. Something is missing, because I have to another curly braces and a semicolon. So now if I have this, can I just display M? Because now if I'm using M, it is going to call the toString, so I'm going to be able to see the result of this toString. So let's try this. And you can see that I'm seeing this is the matrix M. And it is displayed. You go back to the line every time I had that. So let's do something else. Let's display this dot transpose. But this transpose is going to return an array. I cannot just display the array right away, because if I display the array, I'm just going to have an address like this. But I don't want to have this. So now if I'd like to do this something like this, let me use double, and let's name it result, or maybe transpose. Let's name it T, just to make it easy. And now let's have this. No. Let's display this T for I T dot length, for J T0 dot length, and I'm going to display T I J and the space, and just go back to the line over here. And I don't need this one. Maybe just keep it here so I can display M first. M is, so I can see them in this one, and then M transpose is, so I'm going to see M and then M transpose. So okay, let's see what is happening. I forgot to remove this, go back to the line, that's why I have this there. Let's try again. So this is the M and the M transpose. So you can see this 1, 2, 3 is going to be coming now in the rows. I mean, these columns become the rows, and the rows become the columns. 4, 5, 6. So it worked. This is like to confirm what we did. Okay, if I'd like to get just one value, so let's or maybe test create an empty one. Let's have like another matrix M. Let's name it M2. This one, let's rename it to M1. This is M2 is equal to new matrix. I just would like to use the second constructor, which I give it like the size. In our case, this is like 2 by 3. Why I'm doing this, I just would like to test, for example, the times where I don't know, I'm going to let's do something. So this is for the transpose. Let me maybe add or maybe times multiply by 2. So if I multiplied by 2, and I don't need to have another, so I'm going to, well, let's, if I just need to use the same T, instead of using transpose, I'm using M1 times 2. So what I'm doing here, I'm just in this case, now this T, or let's name it result, so it's going to be much more flexible. So now this result will hold the result of this M1, which was this one, multiplied by 2, and I'm going to display it. So this is the transpose. This is M multiplied by 2. You can see that these are multiplied by 2. If I'd like to maybe do something else, let's try the other multiplied, but this time with the matrix by, so I'm going to multiply by M2. Remember what is inside of M2? Let me first display M2. So this is This is M1, M2. This is M1, M1, and M1 multiplied by M2. So this is now times M2. It gives me M2. You cannot have that. You cannot multiply by M2 because M2 is what is the problem here? Can you tell me what is the problem? I'm trying to multiply by M2. I can't multiply by M2 because M2 is what is the data type of M2? Matrix. And my times, I have only two times. One that it takes a double, and the other one that takes matrix. No, that takes a two-dimensional array. So if I'd like to do something like that, then probably I would have to do something else. So how can I get then the other matrix? Sorry? Exactly, yeah, it has to be an array. So let me take another array of the same size. Let me take the input. I'm using the same array to multiply by inputs, which is actually basically I'm just multiplying this one by itself, one by the same thing. So this is like this 1 multiplied by 1, that's 1 multiplied by 2, that's 4, 2 multiplied by 2, that's 4, 3 multiplied by 3, that's 9. That's why I can see these values. Sorry? Yeah, the M2 I put it as 0 because when I declared M2 I just gave the size a 2 by 3. I didn't put any value. If I'd like to put some values inside of them before displaying it, for example, I can do something like this: M2 dot set value of like 0, 0. I'm going to put like 5, and 1, 2, put like 8, 9, let's say. So now if you do this, you can see that now my 0, 0 has 5, the rest has zeros, and 1, 0, 1, 2, it has 9. Because at the first place, when I just give this, if you remember here, sorry, when I got to the matrix, if I'm giving only the numbers, I'm only putting just zeros inside of it. So that's why. Maybe you don't remember because you just came. Which one? Printf. Printf is another way to print on the screen, but this time we print with formatting. It gives you more flexibility actually to print things if you'd like to concatenate between a lot of different things. So yeah, where was I? I was saying that, you know, where we was talking about print align, printf. The printf is going to give you some more flexibility. I think you've seen something a long time ago in the beginning of the semester, but you have to use some special characters. Remember those special characters? Percentage, very good. Percentage S, percentage D for numbers, decimal, integer numbers, percentage F for floats, and something like that, to make them arranged into some specific size. If I'd like to display with 2 decimal places instead of 1, something like that.